Hey, I just finished Resident Evil 8 and I'm fucking disappointed with this game. That's why I really have to make this video, pretty much. I have to talk about it. I'm gonna start without spoilers, just so I'm gonna run down some of the points that I will elaborate later on. So my main problem with this game is that the story. Oh my god, man. Like, I know Resident Evil never has stories that make that much sense, but at least they often make sense in the context of the world or something. But in this game there's so many holes that just make zero sense. And even when they finally tell you what's been going on, right? Like, they put this carrot on a stick in front of you, and when they finally tell you, it's, oh my god, it makes no sense. It's offensive how they do that. And I mean, there's other parts that I think are shit about this game. I think the guns itself don't feel really well. I think they feel kind of the same. And I think the bosses are kind of weak. These are smaller points. But generally the story and also the way that the story is applied in this game, I fucking hate it, to be honest. I think it's one of the worst Resident Evil games in the series. And I mean, it's not as bad as Resident Evil 6, but it's close, I think. I think it's close. If you look at on all the reviews, like, there were so many positive reviews about this game. And I guess it's because it does some of the things that Resident Evil 4 is known for, and which is, of course, one of the most beloved entries in the series. But, oh my god, no. I'm gonna go more into detail now, so if you want to play the game yourself, maybe this is the time to stop the video. Basically, I'm gonna tell the same stuff that I've already told. I'm just gonna go into detail, especially on the story. So yeah, final warning, spoilers ahead. Resident Evil Village, the story. So, as we know from the trailers, the game basically starts with you being relocated as Ethan with your wife Mia into some small village in Europe. And then Chris Redfield comes in and he kills Mia, your wife. And also takes away your daughter, Rose, who's a baby. And pretty much the whole game is spent figuring out why Chris Redfield, the beloved hero of the series, would do something like this. And of course, I mean, is he the villain now? Of course not. But why did he do it? You have to wait like 8 hours or something for that to figure out. And that's after basically he could have told you in 1 minute, in one sentence. And I fucking hate when games do that. I fucking hate when series do that. I fucking hate when any kind of medium does that, where it's really just like they keep that key information away from you just so they can stretch out the game. And because it makes zero sense for Chris not to tell Ethan right away why he is doing what he's doing. So pretty much, spoilers as I told you, right? Like, so pretty much in the end you figure out that this wasn't Mia, it's actually the main villain who can shapeshift into any kind of person, which by itself also makes zero sense, right? Like, why? So the main villain wants to get their hands on Rose the baby, but if she can just shapeshift and break into people's houses, why would she need to act as if she is Mia? If she could infiltrate the house without Ethan noticing, couldn't she just have stolen the baby? And why does she have to act like their family and cook for Ethan and shit like this? This makes zero sense. Then, of course, Chris barging in with his team and gunning down Mia, and then basically telling Ethan nothing while taking away the baby. Also later in some thing he basically says, oh yeah, we weren't sure if you were infected with the mold too, or something. Like, cool, as if that's a reason. You know, like, you could still basically keep him separate, but just tell him, hey, by the way, we didn't kill your wife. But, and then of course it makes zero sense that they are relocated this small family after the events of Resident Evil 7 in Louisiana, right? So they bring them all the way to Europe in this small village, just for this village to be right next to the source, pretty much, of the mold that they fight in Resident Evil 7. And there's even some connection to Spencer, the evil guy who basically built Umbrella, I guess. I think that's... But still, like, how unlucky or how incompetent can you be to relocate this family right next to the very source of what they've been fighting before? Also, I mean, Chris put both Mia and Ethan through military training so that they would be able to, I guess, be prepared for. But then when it's time to face another problem, Chris basically says, Ethan, you have to stay out of this, you are not ready, and shit like this, right? So dumb. Even though, of course, Ethan already fought the Bakers in Resident Evil 7 and he fights all these bosses in Resident Evil 8. So all this is fucking dumb. Because also in the middle of the game you meet Chris again. He's again just saying, stay out of this, instead of just telling him, hey, by the way, I'm not the bad guy, we're still on the same side or something. Fucking dumb. Then, I think a big problem with this game is that it wants to be so story focused, but it just doesn't do it, you know? Like, basically it starts with story in the beginning, the whole thing of, okay, you are now on your own, you have to figure out what's going on. And I was still really felt like this game is promising. So you meet a few of the survivors, so I feel at that point the pacing works. I was still interested in everything, right? And then pretty much after these first encounters, you barely get any story for a really long time. Like, you meet the bosses and you have to go to each of the regions for these bosses to pick up these flasks, which contain a part of your baby, which apparently you can resurrect or something. But still, like, I don't understand why the bosses had parts of the baby in the first place. Because the main villain wants to resurrect basically her own daughter using the flasks and basically using Rose, the baby from Ethan. So why put it in 4 pieces and then give it to these bosses? That makes zero sense, right? Like a lot of stuff in this game, basically you see that they didn't think about a good story. They just thought, oh, the gameplay should be that you go to these different areas, right? And you can fight the different bosses. So they basically, you see that the story was made to fit a video game and not a video game to tell a cool story. But I think both is wrong, right? Like, I feel the story is shit and it's so obvious that they just needed to make like video game levels for it, so they make it even worse. At some point, I think Heisenberg, the metal magician, I guess he tells something that this is all a test for Ethan to join the family of. Nobody ever actually talks about that, and why would this main villain want him to join the family anyway if her main goal is to resurrect her own daughter? She doesn't care about building a family. I don't know, like some of the stuff just... I'm repeating myself, right? This all makes zero sense. It's just annoying to, like, you basically spend so much time to finally meet Chris again after like 10 hours or maybe 8 if you're faster, to finally know, oh, okay, my wife isn't dead and it was just the villain shape-shifting. And you feel like, for this twist you've waited for so long, this is such a lame and dumb twist, right? I mean, from the beginning you feel like, oh yeah, there must be something behind it, like, why should Chris be evil from now? And then this is it? I don't know. For me, it felt so offensive, and it's so offensive that so many websites and reviewers have been so positive about this. It's like, it's so shit. And then you could say, okay, other Resident Evil games or games in general sometimes are not known for their great story that makes so much sense, right? But at least then the gameplay is a means to an end, right? Like, it makes a fun experience. But I think this game is also not a really fun Resident Evil. Like, it does so much stuff that other games have already done, barely builds anything new. For example, you have Lady Dimitrescu, the 8 feet or 9 feet tall vampire lady, but she basically acts like Master X or like Nemesis in her little castle, right? But of course, there's certain rooms she can't enter, and she's just not very scary anymore. When basically every of the last Resident Evil games that came out had this mechanic. So you just see, oh, she's walking around. Oh yeah, like Mr. X, right? Yeah, like Mr. X. Okay, then also boss fights. All the boss fights in this game pretty much are run away from the attacks and then shoot the part that is really obviously the part that hurts them, and then at some point they just die, right? Like, it's like none of the boss fights are memorable. I feel the only part of this game which, I mean, I think the beginning is kind of okay when you don't know what's the twist gonna be, and then the second boss, the doll maker, like basically you go into a puzzle section where you have to dissect the body. That's a pretty cool part. It's sort of horror gamey, but yeah, everything else is so shit, man. Well, let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with my ramblings? I think this video is super unstructured, so I just really put my thoughts into it. I was really just super offended by it. Yeah, I feel it's probably the second or third worst Resident Evil for me. I think the worst is Resident Evil 6, second worst Revelations 2, and then probably Resident Evil 8 Village. I can't think of, I mean, from the mainline games, right? Like, maybe these rail shooters are worse or something, I don't know, but I haven't played them. From the games I played, I think this is the third worst. And yeah, I was so offended, man. If if you're a Resident Evil fan who wants to experience everything, I would say wait for sale or maybe rent it or something. Like it's not a good time, I feel. Yeah, thanks for listening. Maybe you can tell your views in the comments or something, I'm not sure. Thanks for the attention. Goodbye.